The sun blazed mercilessly over the bustling streets of Lagos, its rays bouncing off rusty rooftops and the dusty ground of a cramped mechanic workshop. The smell of oil, grease, and sweat filled the air as three young boys struggled under the hood of an old Toyota Corolla. Their shirts, once white, were now permanently stained black from years of grime. Their ribs stuck out faintly under their skin, and their cracked lips betrayed the truth: they had skipped meals again. They were not mechanics by choice. Life had pushed them here. Chinedu, the eldest at 16, had dropped out of school after his father passed away. His mother sold fruits by the roadside, but her earnings barely bought enough gari for the family. So Chinedu learned how to handle spanners, carburetors, and engines, just to keep food on the table. Beside him was Tund, only 14, a boy with sharp eyes and a brilliant mind. If fate had been kinder, he would have been solving equations in a science lab. Instead, he was tightening bolts with blistered hands. The youngest, Musa, barely 12, was the quiet one. Orphaned at a tender age, he followed the other two around like a shadow, sleeping on workshop floors at night and hustling by day. They were hungry, not just for food, but for opportunity, for someone to see their worth beyond the grease stains on their bodies. That was the day fate sent someone extraordinary. A convoy of sleek, black SUVs pulled up on the street, sending dust flying into the air. The engines purred like lions, machines so rare that the boys had only seen them in magazines or on billboards. Out of the first car stepped a tall, imposing man in a tailored Italian suit. His wrist glistened with a diamond-encrusted watch, and his shoes reflected the sun like mirrors. Whispers spread among bystanders. "That's Chief Adewale, the billionaire. The owner of Adewale Motors and the biggest oil magnate in West Africa." The three boys froze. They had only heard legends about him, the man who rose from poverty in Ibadan to become one of Africa's wealthiest men. His companies spanned oil, real estate, tech, and automobiles. He was the type of man whose single investment could change an entire village. But why was he here, in this rundown street, in front of a shabby mechanic workshop? The billionaire's eyes scanned the environment. He noticed the three boys sweating profusely as they struggled to push the Corolla. The car was almost heavier than their stomachs could handle. He watched as they laughed at each other's mistakes, even though their bodies trembled with hunger. Something in their resilience caught his attention. He walked closer. The street fell silent. Even the Kiki drivers and pepper sellers paused to watch. Who wouldn't? A billionaire in an Armani suit was now standing inside a mechanic workshop that barely had walls. "What are your names?" Chief Adewale asked in a deep, commanding voice. The boys stammered. Chinedu, acting as the leader, stepped forward and wiped his greasy hands on his torn trousers before bowing slightly. "My name is Chinedu, sir. This is Tund, and this is Musa." The billionaire studied them carefully. Their eyes told the story of hardship, but also of untapped brilliance. "Why are you boys here working instead of in school?" he asked. Tund lowered his head. "Sir, we want to go to school, but," his voice cracked, "there is no money." The billionaire remained silent for a long moment. His own memories flashed back, days when he too sold oranges on the streets, when he fixed radios with bare hands to feed his siblings. He remembered the hunger, the rejection, and the nights he cried himself to sleep. Suddenly, he smiled. The crowd pressed closer, expecting Chief Adewale to hand the boys money and walk away. That's what most rich men did. A few thousand naira tossed around for the cameras, a quick prayer, and then they were gone. But this billionaire was different. Instead of reaching into his pocket, he did something unexpected. "Boys," he said, "fix my car." The crowd gasped. His sleek black Mercedes Maybach, worth more than their entire neighborhood, was parked just outside. Even the mechanics in the shop looked terrified. No ordinary workshop touched such a car. The boys exchanged nervous glances. Their tools were crude, their experience limited. What if they scratched it? What if they made a mistake? But Chinidu stepped forward with determination. We will try, sir. The billionaire nodded. Not try. Do it. The boys swallowed hard and went to work. Sweat dripped from their foreheads as they carefully examined the car. Tund, who had a natural gift for understanding machines, quickly identified a minor issue with the spark plugs. Musa ran to fetch tools while Chinidu supervised with steady hands. Minutes passed. The crowd murmured. Could these skinny, hungry boys really handle a billionaire's car? Then, with one final twist of the spanner, the engine roared back to life, smooth, powerful, flawless. The street erupted in cheers. The billionaire clapped slowly, his face unreadable. Very good, he said. But fixing cars alone will not change your lives. Tell me, what do you really want? The boys hesitated. Musa whispered, food. The honesty made the crowd laugh softly. Tund raised his hand timidly. School, sir. I want to learn. Chinidu looked straight at the billionaire. I want a chance. Any chance. To be better than this. Chief Adewale's eyes glistened. He turned to the crowd. Do you see these boys? This is Africa's future, brilliant minds trapped by poverty. If we abandon them, we abandon ourselves. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Bring the papers and the keys. Within minutes, one of his aides appeared with a leather briefcase. From it, the billionaire removed documents and handed them to the workshop owner. These boys will no longer work here, he declared. From today, they work for me. The crowd gasped again. Not as mechanics, he continued, but as students. I am sponsoring their education fully, primary, secondary, university, and beyond. Tears welled in the boy's eyes. For the first time in years, hope wasn't just a dream, it was real, standing in front of them in a suit worth more than their neighborhood. But that was just the beginning. The days that followed felt like a dream for Chinidu, Tund, and Musa. One morning, they were grease-stained boys hunched over rusty engines in a mechanic's workshop. The next, they were sitting in the back of a billionaire's SUV, watching the city of Lagos speed by. Chief Adewale had moved swiftly. Within 48 hours, he had enrolled the boys into one of the most reputable schools in the city. They were given new uniforms, bags filled with books, and a modest apartment close to the school where a caretaker would look after them. For the first time in their lives, they slept on mattresses instead of workshop floors. They ate 3 square meals, and their bellies no longer groaned from emptiness. But the transformation was not as easy as it seemed. On their first day in class, the boys felt like fish out of water. Most of the students came from wealthy families, children of CEOs, politicians, and expatriates. They spoke fluent English, wore designer shoes, and carried iPads instead of notebooks. When Chinidu introduced himself, his accent betrayed his humble background. Some classmates chuckled. Tund, with his sharp mind, quickly realized he was behind in subjects like mathematics and physics. Musa, who had never sat inside a classroom before, stared at the blackboard with wide eyes, struggling to write even simple sentences. During lunch, a group of students whispered loudly enough for them to hear. Look at them. Chief Adewale's charity cases. The word stung. That night, the boys sat silently in their apartment, the weight of shame pressing heavily on their shoulders. Musa almost cried. But Chinidu, the eldest, clenched his fists. We didn't come this far to fail. Do you think Chief Adewale saved us just for us to be laughed at? No. We will work twice as hard. And so, the transformation truly began. While other students relaxed after school, the 3 boys spent hours bent over their books. Tund devoured every textbook he could find, his natural curiosity igniting like never before. Chinidu focused on leadership, teaching Musa how to read and write patiently, line by line. Musa, though the youngest, showed a hunger to learn that astonished even the teachers. Every evening, Chief Adewale's personal tutor visited them, guiding them through difficult subjects. The billionaire himself also checked in often. He didn't just ask about their grades, he asked about their dreams. "What do you want to become?" he asked one evening as they sat in his mansion's garden, surrounded by fountains and marble statues. "I want to be an engineer," Tund replied eagerly. "To design cars better than any in the world." "I want to be a leader," Chinedu said firmly. "Someone who can help others like you helped us." Musa looked down shyly before whispering, "I want to be a teacher, so no child will ever feel as lost as I did." The billionaire smiled. "Good. Remember, money is not the goal. Impact is. If you focus on impact, wealth will follow naturally." But the road to transformation was not without obstacles. Some teachers doubted the boy's ability to catch up. One even told Chinedu, "This school is not for people like you." The words burned in his heart, but instead of breaking him, they fueled him. Peer pressure was another battle. Wealthy classmates flaunted new gadgets and spoke of vacations abroad. The boys sometimes felt out of place, tempted to prove themselves in reckless ways. But every time, they reminded themselves of the grease-stained workshop they had come from. At night, Musa sometimes cried quietly, fearing he wasn't smart enough. But Tund and Chinedu always reassured him. "You're stronger than you know," they'd say. Months passed, and their hard work began to shine. At the end of term exams, Tund shocked everyone by emerging among the top 5 in mathematics. Chinedu received special recognition for his leadership in group projects, while Musa, once mocked for being the weakest, earned a certificate for most improved student. The whispers in school began to change. No longer just the charity cases, they were now being recognized for their potential. Teachers who had once doubted them started praising their resilience. When Chief Adewale attended the school's award ceremony and saw the boys walking proudly to the stage, his eyes watered. They reminded him of his younger self, hungry, determined, unstoppable. One evening, as the boys visited his mansion, Chief Adewale gathered them in his study. He showed them shelves of books, pictures of his early days selling fruits, and framed certificates of the scholarships that had once saved him. "Listen carefully," he said in a solemn tone. "Life has given you a second chance. But it is not for you alone. One day, you must do for others what I have done for you. That is how legacies are built." The boys nodded, his words sinking deep into their hearts. That night, as they lay in their beds, they whispered to each other. "We'll never forget where we came from," Chinedu said. "And we'll make him proud," Tund added. Musa, smiling in the dark, said softly, "One day, it will be our turn to shock the world." They didn't know it yet, but their journey had only just begun. The glow of success was intoxicating, but life has a way of testing the strength of every dream. For Chinedu, Tund, and Musa, the journey from the grease-stained workshop to prestigious classrooms was only the beginning. True transformation demanded trials, and soon, they came like storms. As the boys grew older, the world around them began to change. By the time Chinedu turned 18, he was tall, broad-shouldered, and confident. Tund, with his sharp mind, was already building simple machines from scraps. Musa, though quiet, had developed an unusual gift for teaching. He tutored younger students in his spare time. But with growth came new temptations. Some of their wealthy classmates, jealous of the attention they were receiving, began whispering poisonous words. "Do you think Chief Adewale will always take care of you?" one sneered at Chinedu. "You're just his charity project. Better enjoy it while it lasts." Another taunted Tund, "You're smart, yes, but brains don't pay without connections. Why not join us in some side hustles? Quick money, easy life." It was a dangerous lure. The so-called side hustles involved cyber scams, fraud, and illegal deals, traps that had swallowed many young men whole. For a moment, Tund was tempted. The thought of making money on his own, proving himself independent, tugged at his pride. But he remembered the billionaire's words, impact first, wealth will follow. That night, he confessed the temptation to Chinedu and Musa. Instead of mocking him, they rallied around him. We didn't survive hunger and grease just to throw everything away, Chinedu said firmly. Musa added softly, if we betray Chief Adewale, we betray ourselves. That conversation sealed their bond. They swore an oath to each other, no matter the trial, they would walk the right path together. Not everyone celebrated their rise. The old workshop owner, who had once employed them, grew bitter. In his eyes, Chief Adewale had stolen his apprentices. He spread rumors that the billionaire had only taken them in for publicity, and that the boys were ungrateful brats who abandoned their roots. Worse still, a distant relative of Musa suddenly appeared, claiming guardianship and demanding money. When Chief Adewale refused, insisting Musa's welfare came first, the relative threatened to drag the matter to court. The media caught wind of the scandal. Headlines blared. Are these boys truly billionaires' charity or hidden investment? Mechanic boys now living in luxury, but at what cost? The pressure was immense. At school, some classmates mocked them again. See? Even the papers say you're just a project. For the first time, Musa broke down. Maybe they're right. Maybe we don't belong here. But Chief Adewale called the boys to his office. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of experience. Listen to me. When people cannot understand your rise, they will create stories to pull you down. This is Africa's disease, envy. But if you waste energy fighting them, you will lose focus. Let your results speak louder than their noise. Those words became the boys' armor. The turning point came when the boys entered university. Chinedu pursued political science, determined to shape policies for a better Africa. Tund enrolled in mechanical engineering, his passion burning brighter than ever. Musa chose education, dedicating himself to becoming a teacher who would open doors for children like him. But university life was no playground. The workload was brutal. Money, though provided, had to be managed carefully. For the first time, they lived apart, each navigating new environments and new people. Chinedu faced corruption head-on. In student politics, seniors tried to bribe him into joining shady deals. When he refused, they mocked him as Chief Adewale's puppet. Tun nearly failed his first semester because he refused to buy exam papers from a notorious syndicate. He spent sleepless nights catching up, his hands trembling from exhaustion. Musa struggled the most. Surrounded by students who had been learning since childhood, he often felt like a toddler among giants. But he refused to give up. Every failure only made him study harder. One semester, he shocked everyone by scoring the highest in educational psychology, earning a scholarship from the university itself. For the first time, Musa felt like he truly belonged. By their final year, the boys had transformed into young men with vision. Chinedu became the youngest student union president in the university's history, using his position to fight against exploitation of poor students. He earned respect for his integrity, often reminding his peers, leadership is not about power, it's about service. Tund built a prototype of a solar-powered tricycle, designed for rural communities where fuel scarcity crippled transportation. The innovation caught the attention of local media and won him an international award. Musa started free weekend classes for children from poor neighborhoods near the university. Word spread quickly, the boy who once couldn't read is now teaching others to read. His classes grew from a handful of kids to hundreds. When Chief Adewale attended their graduation ceremonies, he could hardly hold back tears. His gamble on 3 hungry boys had blossomed into greatness. At a private dinner, Chief Adewale looked at them and said, "You've proven yourselves. But now comes the greatest test. What will you do with what you've become? Will you chase personal wealth, or will you build something bigger than yourselves?" The boys exchanged glances. Chinedu said, "We will lead. Tun said, "We will innovate." Musa said, "We will educate." The billionaire leaned back and smiled. Good. Because the world is waiting. And it will not be kind. But remember, iron sharpens iron, and together, you are unstoppable. The room fell silent, each boy realizing that their real journey had only just begun. Years later, the names Chinedu, Tund, and Musa echoed far beyond the streets of Lagos. Chinedu rose swiftly in politics, not as a corrupt official but as a reformer. He fought against unjust laws, built youth empowerment programs, and became known as the people's voice. His leadership inspired a new generation of Africans to believe that honesty could exist in government. Tun turned his university project into a thriving company. His solar-powered tricycles, affordable and durable, spread across villages where fuel was scarce. He later expanded into electric buses, making him one of Africa's most celebrated innovators. International investors flocked to support him, but he never forgot to employ and train young mechanics from poor backgrounds, the very place he once came from. Musa, true to his dream, built a chain of community schools. What started as weekend classes under a tree became fully accredited institutions across Nigeria. Parents called him the teacher of hope. Thousands of children who might have been trapped in poverty were now learning, dreaming, and building futures. Together, the three men created a foundation in honor of Chief Adewale, who had since retired. Their mission, to lift 1 million African children out of poverty through education, innovation, and leadership. When asked why they gave so much back, Chinedu always replied, "Because once, we were just hungry boys in a mechanic shop, and someone believed in us." At the grand opening of their foundation's headquarters, Chief Adewale, now gray-haired but glowing with pride, whispered to them, "You have become more than I ever dreamed. You are my legacy." And in that moment, the world understood, this was not just the story of 3 rescued boys, but the story of how hope, opportunity, and determination could transform a continent. If you enjoyed this inspiring story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful tales of hope, success, and transformation. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you stories that inspire change and touch hearts. Stay tuned, bigger stories are coming your way.